Thank you, Bonnie. I will bring this meeting to order at 6 p.m. Would you all please rise if you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first item on the list is we have a modification to our agenda, so I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve adding the addendum to the personal consent agenda.
I second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, first item after that is board recognition. We have a lot to celebrate tonight, and I would like to begin by inviting Alexis Peterson, our Daffodil Princess, to the podium. Alexis, congratulations. We want to put you on official public record as Morning's Princess. We are excited to recognize our 2024-2025 Daffodil Princess, Alexis Peterson. Alexis is not only an outstanding student, but is also part of our award-winning FFA program. You're good, buddy. We see you. We're part of our award-winning FFA program, where she currently serves as president. Alexis is the first princess selected to the Daffodil Court this year. We had 7 candidates participate in the Orting High School selection, and we want to congratulate all of our candidates and appreciate their willingness to represent Orting in this special tradition. Princess Alexis will make the perfect ambassador for Orting, and we are thrilled to see her shine as she participates in this beloved regional tradition. Congratulations, Alexis, on this well-deserved honor, and we know you'll represent our schools and our community well. We've got some questions for you, though. Why did you choose to run for Daffodil Princess?
Well, I've been to Daffodil Parade once, and it was my freshman year, and I had seen like the princess float and everything, and I didn't inquire, and my parents teacher talked about it. But besides that, I didn't really know much about it until I got that interest meeting, and I went to it, and it just sounded like a lot of fun. You get to meet girls from other schools and make lots of friends.
Very cool, very cool. And then, what are some of the goals that you have for this year?
The goals I have for this year, definitely mostly FFA based, but we have first for Farm for Kids again in FFA, and then
Mostly the Daffodil Field, so that's good, that's important. And then, how would you describe your experience so far as a Daffodil Princess?
it's been fun. I've been to a few of the selections and a few of the other candidates. Not a whole lot, but they're all very sweet, so it's been lots of fun.
Very cool. Well, we're very proud of our Daffodil princesses here in Orting, and I understand Lauren is now going to be president of the board, so that's super exciting. Lauren was our queen from Orting, so we wish you the best of success this year as you're serving, and before you move away from the podium, we'd love to get a picture with you.
Absolutely.
And I have a tip on the phone too.
I have the gift.
Oh, thank you.
Mom, if you want to grab a photo too, you're welcome to grab
The babies can pick
something. Scooch, scooch, scooch.
Oh, what did you read next? Oh, there we go.
Okay, ready? 1. Perfect, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you guys, I appreciate it. loves a sister.
That's awesome.
All right, next, I would like to invite our principals and assistant principals to the podium.
Ask them real hard questions.
So during Principal Appreciation Month, we want to take a moment to express our deepest gratitude to the incredible principals across our district. The unwavering dedication, leadership, and vision make a profound impact on our students, teachers, and staff every single day. We have 4 principals and 5 assistant principals at our schools who inspire excellence, provide guidance, and ensure our schools are safe, welcoming places for all. So we want to thank you from our hearts for your hard work, your resilience, and your passion in shaping the future one student at a time. We appreciate you today and every day. And we would love to get a picture with you and memorialize the Principal Appreciation Month.
And we have goodies.
Why do you guys get back?
I should have team pictures.
Yeah, you know where to stand. No, you're fine. You're just like, get out of the way. Let me elbow you back.
Just tell us.
Ready to run this for
Sorry, I just have this thing, I gotta remember to ask you. You're doing the splits in front, we'll help you. We're gonna do
So, you know, I'm not different. Yeah.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you so much. Very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for Gospel Princess too, you were doing a good wave there.
That is an awesome team of people right there. We are lucky
There
to
it
have
is.
them on. All right, and there's more. I would love to turn it over to the board for additional recognition.
I'm going to say a shout out to the Orting School Cheer Squad, attended the NCAA cheerleading leadership camp at Central Washington University this past month. And as a team, they won many awards. And our own school board representative, Jaden, I gotta find my spot again. Great job that you guys did up there.
Very cool.
Well, I'd like to make a shout out to the high school. They've had a homecoming this week, and I really appreciate all the work that they put in to make it fun for the kids. It's like they did the Olympics last night, and so they do the whole parade, and then the principals still stay after, and then some of the teachers and coaches, and they do the Olympics until, I don't know, 9 o'clock or 9:30. They're working on the float, not the floats, but the hall decorations. They do the dance. I mean, they put in a lot of extra work right now to make it good, special for the kids, and I appreciate that. the kids are pretty excited. It was I thought it was a very good homecoming parade.
Absolutely. We were trying to guess how many students participated in just the parade. We were guessing
Yes.
like 200, 300.
Yeah, it was
Like,
fun.
there was a lot of students. It was really cool to see.
It was.
I wanted to make sure I did the October recognizes comments because a dear friend and employee who was Filipino. I'm doing it for him. Okay, this is Filipino American History Month, Italian American Heritage Month, LGBT History Month, and National Disability Awareness Month. I'm doing that one for my family. And we're proud to be fortunate that we really do have a very diverse group of students now, and it keeps changing, and I love that, and our staff as well. And I'm also going to give a shout out for the Taste of Washington Day, because our food service workers in the summer went to one of my favorite places, Durst Farm Stand, learn how to make pickles and make pickles together. And so the shout outs to our staff as well as to Durst for their wonderful cucumbers and their sharing of how to make pickles. So.
Well, I already mentioned Warren's presidential election. So the theme for this year's Daffodil Festival is growing locally. So we're excited for Alexis to be able to participate in that. It was inspired by Daffodil Festival President Warren Sasaki Boyce's childhood in Ording. Warren is an alumna of Ording High School and our most recent Ording Daffodil Queen from 2017. And so we are proud to have the representation on the Daffodil Festival Board of Directors and to have inspired the theme of this year's festival. So really cool. That's great. And I just wanted to thank our students and all of the parents who were involved in last night's celebrations and parade. It was really cool to see the community come together. And I felt like last year, the community, on the sides of the road, it was a little bit lighter than normal, but wow, did people show up last night. It was really, just want to thank the families and community members that came out to cheer our kids and support students. Anything else, board? Good? All right. This next section is community and staff comments, and we have no one signed up to vote, or to vote. Boy, I hope that's not true. We have no one signed up to speak tonight. So in order to support our student board reps, we're going to flip things around in our agenda and allow their reports to go next, and then we'll turn it over to the superintendent Cassidy. So Carly, Jaden.
Awesome. Okay, I can start us off. We've been doing a lot of focus on student feedback, and so like we did last month, we went to PTR last month. This month we went to OES to speak to some students and really get some feedback on them. We still have the same 4 basis questions where we ask them is like, what does your teacher do that makes learning easier and helps you feel good about your work? And then who at school makes you feel like you belong here and how does that make you feel? The next one is what is something you've done to help other kids that made you feel like you were making a difference? And when you feel upset or mad, what helps you calm down and makes you feel like you're in control? So we asked multiple students at OES, really like those basic questions we kind of like built off of them. It was more a casual conversation. But something that I really wanted to take notice of and like point out the most of was teachers. Every single question, they found a way to incorporate how their teacher was really affecting them in the school building. All the students, especially at OES, and we saw the same thing at PTR, but it was very prominent at OES where it was teachers really like made the students feel safe and made the students feel heard. And that was really exciting for me to hear because there wasn't a single student that we spoke to where they're like, oh, I don't like my teacher or my teacher. exciting to hear and stuff, because I know, like, I had my handful of teachers that I was not very fond of growing up. And so just seeing how, like, the impact that the teachers are making, like, within the students, not even just their learning, but also how they feel and how they just have, like, this belonging at their school, their safety. Safety is a huge thing. And being able to feel like you can be comfortable and identify as, like, be yourself within the school environment. And I think the hugest thing is, like, how much teachers make an impact on that, because they're spending the most time with them, really. It's like the whole entire day you're spending the time with that one person. So it's just, it's like, sometimes you see them more than parents who go to school at times. And so it's having that relationship with your students, as well as having a teacher and an adult that you can trust, is huge. Even at the high school, and I think, like, I bet it's the same for the middle school, like, being able to have a trusted adult, that someone that really you're able to connect with and resonate with, and have that person to advocate for you. I think it was really awesome to hear that we have such amazing staff within our schools district, our school district. See that a lot of the elementary schoolers, especially, they feel like so comfortable with their teachers and feel like they're actually growing and learning with them and succeeding. It's very cool.
Thanks.
Thank you for doing that too.
Yeah.
So, we talked to the kids at OES, as Carly mentioned. All the kids had mentioned something about a Zen net, which is also another word for, like, a reset room for them to go, like, calm down and, like, get in control. I really like hearing that. It makes me so happy, because that's something I wish I had as a kid. And, you know, students who maybe don't have, like, someone that they can go to, like, calm down or, like, help them calm down. I feel like the Zen net is, like, a really good thing for them to have. So that just makes me so happy to hear. And I want to talk about HOCO Week. So it is HOCO Week, as you guys know. We've had so many events, and we've had a lot more participation from students and staff than we have, like, in the previous years that I've been in high school. So that is also something. And then the HOCO parade that we had last night, just seeing the community come together, like, it just makes me so happy, because I'm, like, that kind of person. Like, you will see me, like, at, like, events in Ording on, like, Saturdays or whatever. But it makes me so happy to see the community come together. So HOCO Week, it's been fun. Tonight we have the tailgate for the soccer game. So I'm pretty sure they have root beer floats and axe throwing. So,
Plastic axe.
so that should be fun. And then tomorrow is the homecoming football game. I definitely encourage all of you guys to be there. It's going to be fun. I heard we're most likely going to win. No, 100% going to win. It should be a pretty fun game. And yeah, I do also want to give a shout out to Miss Renee Pauly, because she has been, like, this being her first year, being the new ASB leadership teacher, she's just, like, pulled through. She's been, like, the best, like, support system ever this entire week. So it's been great.
That's really cool. Very cool.
And I kind of want to add on to that about Ms. Polly and our ASB students especially, is just, like, this year has been, in the high school especially, there's a huge, there's just a lot of different changes that happened, and it kind of left us in a very, like, oh no, it's so chaotic. Like, first week of school, we were getting so much, like, new stuff, and Miss Polly, she never been to anything ASB, was a business teacher, and she had to take on this role of running basically, like, our school in a sense, because ASB does so much really, like, for sports and the events and everything that's carried on through. So, like, being thrown into that position, she's been doing an amazing job, and I, like, really just have so much respect, and I look up to her so much. Also, especially because I can see how much she values our voices and values what we have to say, and, like, well, our previous years in ASB, what have we done in, like, adjustments, and seeing what she's been able to throw together in, like, a couple weeks, seeing the amount of work that our ASB kids and leadership kids are putting in, and seeing, like, the involvement we're getting from it, and, like, how cool that is. It's just, like, really exciting, and I really have high hopes for this next upcoming year and what the rest of this year holds and stuff. So.
Why do you think they have more participation by students? What do you think is?
I think this year we've done a better job of like advertising things, and really we have a lot of big characters within our schools, and we have people who are really like, they're creating an environment where when one person does, it's like a domino effect, where one person does it, then I'll do it too, and then like, it's this whole thing. And we do the best we can to make sure that every student is like included in their whole way. Especially for the homecoming parade, for the amount of students that were in there, they all had a float to be on, they all had someone with them,
Right,
which was so awesome.
Yeah.
So just like those type of things to get them involved in those ways is very cool.
We heard some nice things about teachers and principals. Will you make sure you share those with the people involved, because they've left, and I wanted to make sure, because those were some very nice things, and I know they would love to hear that.
Very much so. Yeah.
And I want to just share my appreciation for both of you taking time for this role, because you're both busy and active and have lots of other commitments, and we really truly value your voice, and your voice not here, of course, in our conversations, and also out in the schools connecting with other kids. So thank you for that. I hope it doesn't feel like work, but I want to let you know you're having an impact. Really appreciate it. Thank you. I know you both have things happening.
Something else.
Yes. On that note, if you'd like to leave, we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a great night.
Carly's leaving, but she's going to show up in my report here momentarily. Cameo. Board, I'd like to remind you that next month we were selected to present to the Washington School Director Association Conference. The theme is Perspective. So I included just a slide of what that headline looks like, so other school directors and student board reps from across the state will have the opportunity to sign up for your session, which is really about what we just heard. It's about elevating student voice so you can ensure you're reaching the goals that you have as a school board for your system. We have an hour-and-a-half time slot, so Director Lee and myself are working on an outline of what that will be. We'll definitely be incorporating time for interactivity with guests to think and plan. Like, what is the power of student voice, and why should you elevate that? What are your goals, and what questions would you ask? Things like that. We haven't, don't have it all worked out just yet, but we have kind of some mind frames we've come together. But we'll be sharing a draft with you. I will share that that is due to them to include in the conference app November 13th. So we'll likely have something together. We'll catch your eyes on it in a couple weeks. We'll have a couple weeks to tune, and then more time than that to practice. That's just the deadline for submission. We, of course, have another week and a half after that to dial it in. This is Disability Awareness Month, so I thought I'd share a few slides of the new curriculum that Dr. Westover shared with you last month of what that looks like in action. Here we have Mrs. Chen's class in the middle school, and they're incorporating that idea around government and elections theme. So they were deciding what food should we cook and elevate. I think pizza won on that. So there's a few pictures as they're coming up, brainstorming their ideas, casting their votes. In the high school, we have some advanced mathematics curriculum that incorporates science and hands-on as well. So this is from Mrs. Wagner. Pictures of her students. They have to do the estimating, the budgeting, the tracking, and then the culminating activity as they design bridges is to see how much weight they would hold. They learned that triangles are the strongest shape. And one of their bridges held actually a student. I believe it was 140, 150 pounds, just using rubber bands, spaghetti noodles, and some hot glue. So they had a wonderful, wonderful time, and that was great to hear when we chatted with her at PLC. Taste Washington Day, you heard about the pickles. There they are. Our food service team made those during their kickoff activity and had a chance to serve them a couple of weeks ago. They were actually really, really good. So our meals, everything that we made was produced, grown, and served here locally. So a wonderful event that we hope to do more of over time. So as we think about the new Ag Science Room that we hope to do with this bond, one of the hopes is to really build some community garden space and elevate the growing of food locally, sourcing it local for a food bank or for our own food service program. Here's a little video I'll share. So I was voluntarily asked, told, I don't know how you frame it, but I'm the president of WASA 111, so Bonnie and I have been running the show. That represents all of the school districts in Pierce County. And we thought it would be fun to elevate our own students' voice and ideas at the reception this year for new administrators. So here's a little shot of what that sounded like. So that was Carly on the keyboard, so there's her cameo appearance. So we had 5 of our students come and play for all the superintendents, central office directors, and new principals that were in attendance. It was a wonderful event. Fall sports, our teams are doing really, really well. This was put out by South Puget Sound League, so every sport posted was in the top 4. Golf is the league championships. They don't really have a rating until we come up and I think get through with the state event in the spring. And I couldn't find updates on cross country, but we're seeing lots of participation. The students mentioned some things that are happening locally tonight after this meeting. If you have a chance, soccer I believe starts at 7 or 7:15. So come on out and cheer on the team or show up tomorrow. A few of you with myself will be answering questions to the community about our bond as well as cheering on the Cardinals against Franklin Pierce. We did offer tours to the local community just to show the facilities at Ording Elementary and Ording High. I wrote personal thank you notes to all 24 students, as well as the 6 or 7 staff members that joined us on that event. A wonderful opportunity for our students to hear, not from us, but through the voices of our students and staff. We had food service workers, bus driver, teachers, paraprofessionals, all just sharing what the current condition is. And then the other part of that is because we can't invite our community during the school day, we've been trying to capture other voices, pictures, videos as well. That'll continue for another couple of weeks as we try to cover each facility. And then Matt Carlson, our CTE director, and myself will kind of frame the presentation that I've done for you or that we have done at the Senior Center. We'll record ourselves and put that out as well. So community can hopefully find that useful if they have any questions about what's happening and why.
Nice picture of Bridget.
Yeah, she did a wonderful job that night. We did sign an MOU with the Puyallup Tribe. They have provided texts that are in their native tongue, Tulshutsi, as well as English, so students in our schools can learn a little bit about the language and culture. They delivered those within the last week, so we're excited to get those out to our libraries and our classrooms. PTA has done a wonderful job. We had a wonderful meeting with them today, and just thanking them, they met their fundraiser goal of over $30,000. That all of their funds go right back into local schools, which is phenomenal. They have really helped to partner not only on field trips for every student, but really come a strong message on that anti-bullying thing. So Taproot Theater came back again. Those are a couple of pictures of how full that assembly looked at Ptarmigan Ridge last week. And just so you know what an interactive elementary assembly sounds like, I captured a little bit of video of the students involved.
Good for you. And the Taproot Theater is a great, that's great.
They do a wonderful job. I don't disagree. And they were focusing students, teaching about the 3 R's, the recognize, report, and refuse, and walking them through those strategies through that interactive presentation. It was really, really cool. Homecoming week, I just thought you'd like to see the schedule of events in your board calendar. We're coming down on the tail end this week, and I echo what they said about Renee Pauly. She's done a wonderful job coming in brand new. She's, of course, had experience coordinating big events with graduation. But when you come in your first year as an ASB advisor, you are just busy, and you're turning around after this right to Veterans Day, and there's very little rest, and you're doing that all on top of trying to teach and support kids with your main job. So she's done a great job. Hopefully we'll have a lot of attendance out tomorrow night at football. Again, soccer is going on, and you all have SPLCL passes, so you, of course, can attend, although you'll miss the axe throwing, I think, by the time you get done. Look, this is for general communities knowledge. We do have free dental clinic for our students. There are forms due to the school nurses by October 23rd, and that's in partnership with Tacoma Pierce County Health Department. We know that access to quality health care is a barrier. That's one of your main focal points, is to build partnerships with health providers, mental health providers, behavior supports for materials and supplies, anything that will really help families and children succeed in school. So that'll be coming up next month.
And that is well attended by families. It's well used.
Hopefully I can get some data on exactly how well this year.
Oh, good.
We'll
I
see
didn't
if
know
we
you
can do
did
that.
track.
I'm not sure if we do, but I'd love to be able to get that out to you publicly.
That would be great.
Elevating dignity, lots of work happening in our schools. There's Cougar Kudos cards, so I just put some things in the board report about what students are being recognized for. Part of that idea that you'll hear more about next month in our school improvement plan is students' goal setting, reaching mastery goals and tracking their progress. So there's already students that are setting and beating their goals, good citizenry, so lots of things being recognized. On the OES side of the house, not to be outdone, our Mountaineers are also getting Mountaineer ticket. So things like being positive in the classroom, following expectations, collaborating well with their classmates. So I put some of the ticket winners, what that is, and just thought I'd lift that for you. OMS is really continuing with their goal around every student being included in something. So to help do that, they hold an OMS Club Fair where students can come and try out and experience, whether it's STEM club or chess club or a variety of the other clubs. I think Kevin has continued to grow that in his school. So just wanted to put that out there that you know that you'll hear more about his involvement around the whole child and get everybody connected to the school when we're at CSIP plan presentations next month. We do have school conferences next week. K-5 does a personal conference with every parent guardian. So they have more half days, so there's 4 half days at K-5. Well, we do more whole group student-led conferences at the secondary at OMS. So we do have conferences next week, which also means it's book fair season. So that information has gone home to families so students can come, and we'll have a lot of parents and guardians in our schools next week. This is a new idea. If I shared this data with you, I believe. So right now across Pierce County, about 15%, 16% of the youth in Pierce County are considered obese. The number is 1 in 8 preschoolers. And we really wanted to think of a creative way of getting people outside, getting them healthy, moving, educating the whole child is more than just the academic self. It's the social, emotional, and physical safety. So we came up with this hashtag, Get Outside OSD, and we came up with different logos that Jill Garcia had put together, tuned a little bit with Brittany, and we're going to be launching a campaign that's really focused on elevating physical activity across the district. And the idea is pretty conceptually simple. You set a goal that's relevant and meaningful to you, talk to your PE health teacher about it or come in the office, and we're going to give you one of these stickers. And over time, students collect more and more stickers. We're coming up with this idea about the Golden Yeti. It's yet to be designed. But for me, I think the Golden Yeti, my goal would be running a half marathon. I do not like running. It's not my favorite activity, but it has to be a stretch goal, right?
Yeah.
So over time, we think this is something that students can help name the different Yeti, come up with different sticker designs, and over time, we can get more people involved. I've talked with the American Heart Association about partnering on healthy activities and things like that. So you're seeing it here first, so this is something we hope to talk to our PE health teachers and then get out there to the broader community. Maybe we hide stickers on certain trails. And, it's something where families can hashtag, where they meet a goal and celebrate. Hopefully it starts to grow legs and we can get the community involved.
You know, some group at the high school was painting rocks and placing them along the river dike a couple of years ago. So you could, yeah.
For some hidden stickers, a little X marks the spot.
But a rock lasts longer than a sticker in our.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. So those are our first 8. We ordered quite a few. We hope to launch that sometime in the next month, and hopefully we'll start to get some hashtags and good goals set.
I really like the list.
Yeah, there's.
Don't have t-shirts yet.
I want to wear one to walk along the river then.
Okay, what's your stretch goal?
I love it.
It's gotta be a good goal.
Okay.
Then maybe we can find t-shirts, yeah. I think this is just something that can grow over time as we celebrate, that's the hope. So I just wanted to close with that, that's where we're headed, and hopefully we can kind of deliver that to the community and get people involved.
And it can turn into a challenge against, right?
I love it.
Yeah.
We already have students setting a goal at Ording Elementary to try to get a full marathon with labs, so I think there's ways to incorporate what we're doing in the school community as well as the outside community too. Maybe we'll have some hikes with hats on a Saturday where you all can come. I don't know if Brittany's coming, but that was her voluntary idea for me. She said, you know what you should do? Take people on a hike.
Well, you
Yes,
know,
hike club.
Jill Garcia's son, Ethan, doesn't he he leads a walk on Wednesday nights, right? Yeah, and you can meet over here at the school and do this walk with him, so that's pretty cool.
Love that idea.
But the different walks to introduce people to the different, I mean, there's the dike there, there's the dike along, out there by the dog park. Yeah, you know, to walk along. So there's the one that goes behind PTR and middle school. I mean, you know, to introduce people to all the different lovely walks we have.
So that's kind of some of the idea with the recognition theme, the water bottles, the outside, the move, get healthy. When we want to try to emphasize that whole person across the community.
That's good.
Got your goals set? Okay.
For sure.
All right, very good. Thank you,
You're welcome.
Superintendent Hatzenbeeler. Next up is Dr. Lee, strategic goal progress.
Actually, we
Did I miss something again?
Yeah.
It's
Oh, it was
See
highlighted like that's what we were on. My bad. My bad.
Sit down.
I see the confused look. Now you're warmed up.
We can just switch.
Now you're warmed up. You're good. All right. My apologies. So the student 2024-2025 enrollment update and class size overload report is prepared by Ms. Christensen. Did you have anything that you wanted to add to this?
Not specifically.
Okay.
I
Any
certainly can answer
questions?
any questions.
Any questions?
I was just gonna say, I was surprised at, I just got it. What was it, was it the high school one? I was surprised, I was expecting that there to be a lot of class overage in the elementary school. But it's the middle school and the high school.
Yeah.
And once again, overcrowded, means there's less classrooms to put, to make smaller classes.
Yeah, I think this was a number also that it's kind of invisible to the community. So when we talk about the cost of portables and, you know, the challenges of parking, I personally haven't mentioned the cost of classroom size overages, but that's that number that just keeps creeping up as we get overcrowded. And
So that was a big number.
I appreciate this report for pointing it out, because again, it's a good reminder to all of us that the cost will continue to increase.
Yes.
And it's also really tough on the kids and the teachers.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
completely. Yeah.
I saw me stand up, I was just gonna add one piece pertaining to that, and that is at the elementary level, we specifically staffed low so that we could meet our K-3 ratio, so that we could add additional dollars to the budget that were captured in our staffing. And in doing so, we tried to staff, for example, at our K-3, we tried to staff at about 21 students per class. All of our classes are, many of our classes are maxed out, and at certain grade levels, they are all right at the threshold. With one more student per class, they will be over. So, just wanted you to know that we're bumping into that because of the overcrowding, that we do have those additional students in our classrooms.
And it's only October.
Right. Cover.
Yeah.
Right. So even if we ended up hiring another teacher and making the classes lower, is there no place to put the teachers?
We have no place.
Yeah.
Yesterday, we needed just a meeting, a quick meeting, and we had to use the principal's office and displace the principal because every space is used at our schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is the portables behind BTR, they're not open yet, right?
Modified open. We were able to do a couple activities there. Curtis's team has a little bit more finishing touches to fully finish before we can move in.
Okay.
But yeah, they made great completion and they're usable, but not fully moved in ready yet. But we think within the next week.
Okay, without further
I don't follow this too. But yes, I have. So we met back last spring, we were talking about our strategic plan and how to really measure that throughout the year. And a lot of this was driven by the availability of data along the way. And so when students take the state testing, it's last spring, but it takes them kind of a while to get it back to us. And so that's why we're really talking about this in October as opposed to September or even like June. And so the data's come out and it's actually posted on the Washington State report card. And so everything that was in the report that I submitted to you is part of that Washington State report card. And that data is it's available to anybody and everybody. So we have 4 strategic goals. And those 4 strategic goals deal with academic growth, and we'll deal with that one today. And then the last 2 are really to talk about whole child and really the student support system. So those are the 3 we're reporting on today. And those measures are really around state testing, the Smarter Balanced Assessment, SBA, the WACAS. And then we're also going to really talk about attendance as well as we get into the whole child and really looking at the student growth percentiles that are attached to the SBA for the student support systems. So this should all look familiar. Okay. So the measures, really goal 1 and goal 4, are really around the Smarter Balanced Assessment, which are, just as a review, given in grades 3 through 8 and 10. And then the Washington Comprehensive Assessment for Science is given in grades 5, 8, and 11. So those are the years we get those tests. Now it's important to remember with the WACAS, that when we start talking about student growth percentiles, that test is not given back to back. So in other words, you don't take it in 5th and 6th grade. In 5th grade, you don't take it again until 8th grade. So look familiar? Yeah. So the data, I took and I compiled all the data from the Washington State report card. We're really looking at the difference between where Oregon's performing and really where the state is saying that we should perform. Now remember this, the Smarter Balanced Assessment is a test that says that students along the K-12 experience, are they on track to really be college ready? And it's just all about college ready. And so one of the difficulties we have with this is that students develop at different rates and different ways along. So it's really hard to really think about, like in 3rd grade, will they be college ready by the time they're done with high school? Because what's going to happen is some of the kids will develop really super fast, some will develop really slow, but still they have benchmarks along the way. So our data is not where we want it to be. And I know that's less than what the board expects us to do and what the state really expects us to do as well. But there are bright spots along the way. There's people in our system that are doing amazing things with kids every day. And it really reflects in all of our data, even in this data as well. But I also want to point out the difference between really becoming even with the state and me being less than the state in terms of our performance is sometimes the difference between 1 or 2 students per class. And so if you look at like the language arts ELA measures, it really is, for example, Oregon Elementary School, really is a difference between 1 or 2 kids per class. So we start thinking about that in those terms, like getting it down to that level, that grain size, to really help us understand the state a little bit more. But there are celebrations at Oregon Elementary, Target Ridge. I mean, all 4 schools really have a lot of celebrations to go through, and really thinking about the achievement. Part of this report is around looking at targeted groups of students. And so that's when we start pulling out like Black African American students, for example. What's their experience like? We also looked at the difference district-wide. One of the biggest struggles we have is really the difference between boys and girls. And you saw, like, pull up that data and you looked at that link, you'll see in every data point that we have, boys are struggling. And it's a lot of that is probably how we are approaching instruction, and we're looking at boys. But you guys have to remember we went through a pandemic. And so the struggles and the complexity of what it means to be successful in the SBA is really being reflected in this overall. But the celebrations that we have are really at Oregon Elementary School, for example. They're 4th grade boys, talk about boys, they perform better than the girls. And that's an interesting data point. So we need to dig into that a little more and find out, why is that, right? If you look at PTR, again, boys perform better than the state average. Pretty good, right? Oregon High School, look at them, they're always in grades, Ed and I've been there, right, Ed? That's true. That's right, yeah, that's good. So the ELA is actually above the state. That looks like we have tons of celebrations around their actual day, which is good because that's the end of our system. Remember we talked about, the SBA is really a marathon, it's not a sprint. So the end of our system is doing better than pretty much every other part of our system, which is kind of where you want it to be anyhow. So I'll stop there, you look at the data.
the math in high school, the math in the ELA is
Huge
huge
difference, right, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I want to say thank you to the board, by the way, that you mentioned math, for providing all of that curriculum. I mean, you've all been incredibly supportive of every step along the way to give us the tools we need to really meet the needs of kids. So the board's done an amazing job. I just want to thank you for that. And I'll stop there. You looked at the data. So what questions do you have about that data?
Shocking. Yeah, I've got questions, but I did not give them to you in advance, so I am not expecting answers tonight. But I had an idea. One of the questions that I had in reviewing our data, I'll let go of this slide, and then following it up with some of that attendance data is, and I don't even know if this is possible, but what happens when you remove, student scores who are attending school and maybe missing more than 10% of the days? When you remove their score data, what happens to our averages? Because that is one thing, our systems are designed around improving our scores while students are in school, and we clearly have some work to do on the attendance side. Our families and our community really has work to do on helping the kids get into school, and so when we kind of segment that group out as a subgroup, what happens? Like, do all our scores, and I don't know if you can slice it like that, but that was something that did come to mind.
Well, there's probably good and bad news within that. So the good news would be if they're gone, it impacts their performance, right? And the bad news is, what if they are gone, and it has no impact on whether or not they do well, right?
Right.
And both those data points could be true, but it's the importance that you're actually elevating there is what we call triangulation of data. So when we talk about just a smart balance assessment, it's a snapshot. It's one day where the kids walk in and they take a test, and that could be their worst day of the year, right?
Right.
And so it's really important for us when we look at data to really look at things like attendance and to really look at other things along the way so that we are showing a full picture of what the students are, and that's reflected in our goals. And so I don't have the correlation for you right now, but I'm telling you right now, common sense would tell you that if they're not here, they're not learning, right?
Right.
And so we have to have them present here with us in order for us to make a difference, especially when we talk about intervention. And when kids are gone a lot, they just don't do well, which is why the state talks about 2 more days per month being absent, being chronic. So that's 2 days a month. And if you look at attendance overall, it's pretty common for kids to be gone 2 more days per month. And so we have to think about what are our priorities, how do we get kids to school, how do we do that? So.
If you're ever able to share that information, it plays into us, because you just talked about supporting curriculum. Maybe the curriculum is not the problem we're trying to solve. And I trust those recommendations, and we're seeing the progress, and so I'm not questioning those previous decisions to support curriculum. But as we're leaning into more and more supports for kids, are we supporting the thing that'll really make the difference for our district?
And I would, if you don't mind, I would add, we have done some analysis with the attendance rate, and we put historical SVA growth, so 2 or 3 years where we had it for students post-COVID. And absence rates did not consistently correlate with improvement or decline in scores, would be the generalized trend. And neither did prior performance. We had level 1 historical students that some popped, and we had some that were level 3, level 4 that were down to level 2. So part of the reason we wanted to move to increased progress monitoring with the tool Erin will talk about is because we need better information along the way, because that autopsy data is too inconclusive. It's hard to make sense and figure out what we need to do for a child. But we do generally believe those measures you put in those goals are all valid and reliable as indicators, potential indicators of overall likelihood for success. But I don't think any one it's seeming so far is directly correlating as a causal factor with another issue, is what we've seen so far. But we think they're all, at this point, need to be on the list, because until we unpack it more closely, we're not exactly sure what those risk factors are for kids. But common sense, as Erin would say the more you're gone, the less likely you are to benefit from what we're offering.
I think that could also be an individual thing, because there could be one student that can miss 3 days, and actually doesn't impact as much. There's another student who can miss 3 days, and it's a big impact depending on who the student is, honestly. I've seen that before.
Yes.
Yeah, I think at the strategic level, there's elements of family and community engagement. I would say that this is a pretty good indicator of that we can probably do a much better job of bringing our parents into the fold and really partnering with them around those things. I've also thought a lot about what do we actually use attendance for? And remember during COVID when kids were gone, well, they're gone all the time. What ended up happening is that the kids learned when you start using technology without them being present. Well, it's lingering. And so that idea that I can be gone and I can still have everything in the real classroom, it's there. And teachers to their credit are posting what they put in there to give kids. So our challenge is, how do we make the time that they're with us be relevant, important, beyond the tasks that we're assigning to them? And that's something, if you talk to Cliff at the high school, he'll tell you that the kids know how to use the computer. And so if you can look it up on the computer, we have to make sure that we're engaging them at a high level in a way that engages them. It gives them something that they can get only at school, right? And so that's the challenge for us.
That's a big challenge for everyone.
Right, and that's only in the last couple of years, we can really say that's been the challenge for us, so.
Also, I was really disappointed that there wasn't more of a breakdown, given the huge number of standards that there are, because there's no breakdown in, say, they did better on reading in nonfiction than they did in reading in fiction. Because it's just this big broad thing, there's no way to pinpoint on, the standards that maybe you're not meeting. Instead, you're just them all.
When I remember when they first did the Smarter Balance Assessment, they said this is not a diagnostic form. And so there's an element of, because you only give it once a year at the end of the year, and so it is truly an autopsy. And so what we have to do is we have to think about how do we make student performance diagnostic. And I'll talk about a tool called iReady, which tomorrow, teachers are going to be trained on that tool. It'll give us that kind of data that you're talking about, recommending it, and it does, by standard, tell us how students are doing throughout the year. So it's not at the end, it gives us time to really do something about it.
Right, and even though it is only a snapshot, it would be nice to have an idea of what you were focusing on, so that, I remember hearing in the past that we didn't do very well in nonfiction, reading in the content area. So in second grade that year, we did lots more nonfiction reading, because we knew that as the district needed that. So, when it's something so broad that you can't at least hone in the focus, like it would be shooting a photograph without having any kind of focus on your camera.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone at OSU would disagree with me, they may or may not, but it was never intended for us to use it as a teaching tool. And that's the part, it's more of a check on the system to see our students really on par to really go to college when they graduate from high school. That's what the tool's for. Even the tool itself, SBA and WCAS, they're adjusting that. If you go to the Washington State Report Card, they're actually rephrasing what they consider to be college and career ready now. And so they're talking about like readiness skills versus like college ready. And if you look at that, you can actually, it elevates the scores quite a bit. So it looks like, so if you have 40% proficiency, it goes up to probably 60, even 70%. Because they talk about level 2. Remember, the SBA is on 4 levels. 1 and 2 are considered now not proficient, 3 and 4 are. And so level 2s, if you elevate those, it ends up being a vast majority of the kids. So they're rethinking what this test is about. Gratefully so.
So is it, I see that the Hispanic Latino students performed above the state average in ELA. That's not normally that way, is it? So that's a difference there.
Yeah, there's things to be really proud about and think about. There's intentionalities from our staff and teachers that have done an amazing job in terms of focusing in on the students that need the most help. I'll give you another example, like our ELL students. We hired another teacher last year, and so those scores shot up, which is great because we actually have a lot more of them now than we ever had in the past. So there's celebrations within that, right? Yeah.
Well, and we probably have some new cells, because some of the groups that we had before might not have been big enough to actually be a portable cell, since we're becoming so much more diverse.
Yeah. And you'll notice that even our Hispanic population, for example, is pushing 16-17% now. And that is much larger than it has been in the past. Also, if you think about like how the state really disaggregates student race, it's two or more races is one of those categories that's really hard to determine, like what does that actually mean? And so a lot of our groups that we have probably would be much larger. So I think that even though we say we have, 65% of our students are quote unquote white in our district, it's probably way lower than that because there's a misrepresentation in how we're reporting on data, and it's all self-reported anyhow. So people will show up and just check the first box they see. And so there's something over time enough for us to really take a look at that through the equity lens. Because we are, I think you said it earlier, Director Manning, we are becoming way more diverse. And we have it's accelerating, which is a good thing.
And so is there, if it isn't a big enough cell, is there a separate group that just says, English is not their first language?
Yeah, so
Where they're, instead of like separating them into the different culture groups, is there just,
yeah, there's a,
we used to think of that as the Hispanic Latino group, but now we have Ukrainians, yeah.
yeah, cultural identity overlaps, right?
Right.
So I think
Right.
you can be female and still be Latino, right?
Right,
And so the way the data comes up, the state tries to add it all up to 100.
right.
But if you think about the overlapping identities that we have, that you can't make it happen that way. And so we try to take basically a square peg and put it in a round hole. And that's just the way they report it. But I mean, the intent is good. The intent is for us to really take a look at, are we making some groups of kids invisible along the way, not paying attention? The intent's good, but sometimes it has the opposite effect, right?
Right.
The other data point for us today is thinking about student growth percentiles, which it took a little bit to really kind of understand what student growth percentiles are. This graphic was put out by OSPI. The idea is if you were to take kids in 2023 and you line them up in neat rows, like your level 1 kids, and all the level 1 kids have got the same score as you, and then where would you fit in that row, right? And so if we have 100 kids that all got level 1, and a kid's directly in the middle, they would have a 50th percentile growth, right? And so the higher number you get, the more kids you're in front of. So if you have greater growth than all your peers, you'll be at the very front of the line, right? And you'll have 100 percentile growth, right? But if you're below 50, like say if you're 30, that means that you had 70 kids in front of you that grew more than you in that single year. The thing that's complex about this, you have to have 2 years in a row of measurements. If you don't have 2 years in a row, statistically, you can't do it. And so that's why there's nothing for the high school, for example. And if you look at the high school box, it says there's no student growth percentiles, right? And the reason is because when is the SBA, this is a test for you.
Right.
When is the SBA administered in high school?
11th grade?
For science.
For science.
10th grade for.
Right. Previous to that, when is, if you're a 10th grader, when's the last time you took that SBA?
8th grade.
Right. So you don't have 2 consecutive years, right? And so you have to have 2 consecutive years to show growth. The same thing is true for 3rd graders, right? So there's no student growth percentile for 3rd graders because they didn't take an SBA in 2nd grade, right? And so that's why that data looks a little funny. But the really interesting thing about this data is it really talks about how much the students grow compared to their peers. This is a huge celebration for our district. Because if you look at any one of our schools, especially the middle school, look at any one of our schools, you'll see student growth percentiles as being incredibly high. So the first bullet in each one of these, that actually puts together typical and high growth within that building. And so if you look at Oregon Elementary, for example, I think my eyes are right, it says 69.8%.
69.6.
So think about that. So their high growth and typical growth was more than half of them, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at their overall performance, it doesn't necessarily reflect that. What it shows is that we've grown a lot in a year, which is a huge accomplishment for that school and those teachers along the way. And if you look at any one of the groups within these schools, there's a ton of those celebrations that are out there that we typically don't look at, right? We just want to know, did kids make it over the hump or not? Well, if we think about 1, 2, 3, levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, they're arbitrary anyhow. And so this for me is a much better measure for the investment the board has put into students, right? The curriculum we've invested in is reflected here. The extra teacher that we hired in ELL is reflected here. The work we've done around agency and dignity is absolutely reflected here. And so this is probably, I would consider, a much more powerful measure of our progress than the proficiency. And so for me, it's exciting to look at this kind of data. I showed Principal Collins his middle school data, and he was like overjoyed. Because when you start looking at your proficiency, it just doesn't seem to move. This data, right? This is a reflection of the future right here, the direction we're going in.
Does this go to, do you send this to parents and explain it? Explain any of this? Do they see this, parents? We probably, like,
I know that's,
200%.
I was kind of, like, how do we communicate this to people outside the system? Or who have children here but maybe don't speak
because
educator
they just
language?
look at
Right.
the
Yeah.
scores. The
Right.
score.
Yeah.
That's all they see, that's all they have.
And I know parents don't do this. It is on the Washington State report card, and so it's not like this is a secret.
It's not a secret,
Yeah,
but
it's supposed to.
But maybe if we promote it a little more, you know, I mean, if it's nice to see that.
Yeah,
If we don't-
Yeah, that's a great, I think, talking point for us to really think about how we share that public. Yeah. So even though our attendance is below state average, even though our proficiency for a lot of areas, not all, is below state average, we're above the state average in most of these,
Yes.
yeah.
right?
Growth.
So it's amazing. It's amazing. It's really good stuff.
Or one other thought I had, there were others, but, because this is part of our public record, this is one of the ways that we share with the community. In the links, in the detailed data, we're looking at comparative, Washington state average, and then we've got our subgroups. And I was curious how those subgroups and what their Washington state average was. So I know the intent is to raise all subgroups to be above average. That's the goal of all of this. But for comparative purposes, are subgroups lagging behind the state average or ahead of the state average? And that information is not on here, and I thought it could be informative.
Yeah, the reason it's not on there is because the state doesn't report it that way,
Well,
which
that's
is unfortunate,
who's in
right?
charge.
I think that we could probably come up with that data point on our own. It would take us a while. I think what will negate all of this, everything I'm talking about, is this new tool we're getting called HighReady. And what it'll do is it'll show teachers at least 3 times throughout the year, probably 4, how students are performing and growing over time. And so that's something that I think is relevant
Valuable, yeah.
and valuable for us moving
Okay.
forward. But we have limited data
But don't
right
spend
now.
time on that. Spend time on the other stuff.
I get you. So this is a slide that last time I presented, we were taking a look at. So what we were very surprised by the student performance that came out last spring. And as we're looking at students that's trickling in, I used to do this as a principal, it was almost like watching TV for us. So I get my assistant principals, we'd sit around the screen like, okay, what is it today? And I did that too this past year. And as the scores started ticking down, I'm like, oh, it just started breaking my heart. And so we have to take that surprise out of that. So we have to take the thrill of looking at those scores. And the only way we can do that is by having better data along the way. But there's elements, and I talked about these last times, around system coherence, which is a word that you're going to hear probably quite a bit from principals as they present their CSIP plans. It's like, how do we have everything lined up in a way that's going to help us teach kids better, right? And help us help each other do a better job. We talked about data quite a bit today, but that data and materials that you all have been providing us has been amazing. And the kinds of things we're engaging in are pretty impressive. In math and ELA, it's really about developing agency in students, and you have to see one of those lessons. You have to see a math lesson, and the amazing things that are coming out of that. We have systems alignment, so really thinking about how does assessment really align to intervention, for example. You think, well, it should always, but it hasn't always. And so think about that student-centered agency and dignity. All the research shows that the hardest questions on the test, and I'll talk about those in a second, are aligned to student agency. If students don't have agency in mathematics, then they're probably not going to pass that test. And that's every level along the way. And then really those standards and outcomes, I'll focus on that in a second, but we have to pick the right things. Remember last time I was kind of picking on Jaden? I said there's about 900 standards out there. So you know all of them, you want to be testing on those right now? Well, that's not a realistic expectation of anybody. And so we have to really think about, like, are we picking the right standards? So I want to talk about priority standards for a little bit. This idea is that how do you pick the right standards? Well, not all questions on the SBA and the LOCAS are equal. They're not the same. There are some questions that if you answer right, actually get a pass at a much higher rate than others. And like key ideas and details, for example. If you as a student, when you're reading a passage, if you understand what you're reading and the key ideas within that and can name some details, that puts you ahead almost instantly. That is weighted very heavily on the SBA. And so when we think about priority standards, we have to pick those. We're spending quite a bit of time on doing those, and that's why we contracted out with the Core Collaborative. And we have a math PhD that's helping us with those things. And then we have Paul Bloomberg, who's coming in with a system that is bringing in where we have this focus in on these priority standards. Pretty impressive stuff. But I went over this last time. So the essential elements, these impact teams, are what we've been working on together as a system. So how do we bring better coherence and focus to what we're doing? The first one is around setting the right goals. These goals, what they do is we're looking at which of the kids are well below standard, and we're saying we're going to focus on those kids, or set a goal around those kids to move them up. And the other kids are, what are the kids that are right on the edge, if they're almost proficient, and we're going to name every single one of those kids by school and by classrooms. Remember I said it only takes 2, 3 kids. Yeah. If we can name those kids, imagine the power of that, right? So these goals are really about setting those goals by kid and really using the data to do that. The priority standard cluster is what I just got done talking about. So we pick the right things to learn and teach. And then thinking about mastery goals is probably something that will be near and dear to our hearts, which is we're asking students to not only set goals for themselves, but do it on those priority standards, and then chart their own progress along the way. That's agency. Pretty cool, huh? And then the next one is around formative assessment. Are we checking along the way that what we're doing is the right thing? So I talked about iReady, and I'm sure your principals will talk about that when we talk about the CSIP plans. But it's pretty impressive data because it's aligned to standards, and we can actually pick those priority standards and say how our students doing on those, right? And it's a computer adaptive test, which I started thinking about this. Like you sit down and take a test, and then it'll ask you the first question. If you get that right, it'll give you a harder one. Right? If you get that right, it gives you a harder one, and it's like you get the next one wrong because it's too hard. So it drops down a little. So it adapts to how you're answering those questions. It's the first time in this district we've had something like this. So it's an impressive tool, and teachers are being trained on it tomorrow, and administrators as well. Yeah.
How long does a typical test take to get?
It depends. So some kids get it done in 15 or 20 minutes, and some kids take over an hour.
Oh, okay.
So it just depends on them,
Yeah.
right? And the really interesting thing about this tool is, this came up quite a bit, what's stopping kids from just pushing a button, right? Right. Well, it'll tell you when they do that, and you can intervene in the moment, right? It's a little red flag,
Oh,
right?
that's nice.
And if it just kind of suspects it, it'll send up a yellow flag, right? And so you can actually like talk to the kids like, hey, how's it going? You can also retest them as well. And so it does actually take into account those things, the real life like kid experience with these things. And the last one is really the EA cycles of inquiry. It's really about evidence, analysis, and action. And so we have to look at our systems, because I think a lot of times we're so focused on the action, we don't stop and say, is what we're doing any good? And so this is really our schools, our PLCs, taking time to look at the evidence we're collecting, look at and then analyze that evidence somewhat, and then take some action based on that. So it's a cycle. Now Ed has been really clear on this one. I don't know if he's told the board. He says, come hell or high water. I can't cuss in our board meeting. Come heck or high water. We are going through this cycle no matter what, right? And you think it'd be like, it makes sense, right? It's logical. But moving a system around these 5 things has not been easy, but we're going to do it. And not only that, we're going to do it at least once this year, but as we go into next year, we're looking at least, 3, 4, 5 times, right? As we get better at it. So this cycle, this is linear here, but it looks like a cycle through this, is to really start defining the goals, thinking about those priorities, setting those mastery goals, formally assessing those things, and looking at that as a system. So that's a lot.
Aaron, what are some of the challenges you see that could be hurdles in you executing this year?
That's a great question, because here's a slide that'll tell you that right there. So,
Not a taxpayer.
you read every bit of it, right? So this is a document. The first thing you have to do when you bring in change is you have to co-create things. So in other words, if I just said, this is what we're going to do, and I gave it to you, and I said, just do it, then what's going to happen is no one's going to buy into it. You it's amazing, right? And so we're spending time with our leaders, our principals. Really, when we talk about progress and proficiency goals, let's one, agree on what the definition is, and then one of the columns that talks about what does done look like. So done is like not just this year, but in the future. And so we spend time, in this case, we spent time with principals really defining each one of these things, and they added their comments and their thoughts around those things. So we have our leaders really having a common understanding of what these things are. So that's one of the biggest challenges that we have, right? Get leaders on board. The next thing is, how do you systematize those things, right? And so bringing it back to the professional learning communities and looking at those things. So there's a lot of accountability. That's kind of a scary word. But that accountability can be good because we learn from that. Like if we get stuff and we're getting indications that we're not doing the right thing, it allows us to adjust, right? And I don't know about you, but I don't learn very well from success. I just don't. Like there has to be some degree of failure along the way for me to understand that I need to get better. And so this, if we define what we need to have, and then we can now measure, are we there or not? So we're also taking our leadership teams and we're totally adjusting those along the way. So it's not just like we do it once. We're coming back to this thing. So we have times when we come back and redefine, like what are mastery goals? We're going to spend some time with Dr. Paul Bloomberg on November 4th. He's going to come in and help us define what that looks like and that system around that. And that's really what we talk about, the LT lab, leadership team lab. And then what does that look like in PLCs? And what does that look like in classrooms? What data are we going to collect along the way? And then we're going to share that data. We're going to bring those artifacts back, right? And so it's not just us talking about change, it's actionizing and saying, is it working or not? Which I think is kind of fun. It's kind of a great way to do it.
That's a
So I have a question about the SMARTY goals, and I see what you're doing PLCs, and are the principals and teachers talking about it class by class, say an evaluative? I don't mean evaluation as how many kids passed the test. I mean as in, can you explain your SMART goals in your classroom?
Yeah, so there's two connections with that. One is that these goals aren't created in isolation. Back in the olden days, Ed and I used to sit in his office and we just like make up our CSIP plan, right? And then we'd figure out how to measure it, and then we'd maybe involve people that way. It's not that way anymore. So these goals are collaboratively set by PLC. So the language arts PLC, for example, at the high school, I sat through that meeting and Cliff led his entire team through looking at student data and saying which students are right on that bubble that we can move up by name. And the teachers got excited about it because what they want to do is they want to over-identify kids and move everybody up, but then we start really focusing on them, like, yeah, we can do that. And so it's a collaborative process, it's a co-creative process, and you don't do it in isolation. And that's the power of it, is you get to name kids, do it together, and so it's not happening to you, it's happening with you.
Are there special education students taking the test?
Yeah, when I was at the math high school PLC, the two special education teachers were there right alongside of us. And we identified some kids like, hey, they got a level 3, but yet they have an IEP in math. We're like, what's that about, right? And so just those kind of things bring up conversations with us. And it's a powerful thing if you do it.
So I haven't seen the test, but does it, like the reading, let's say, is there a lot of reading in the ELA? Does that go to a level that do you look at their IEP level and then adjust it, or do they have to read at the level that?
Or the iReady? So the iReady will start everyone off at the same level, right?
Okay.
And if it senses that they're frustrated to get it wrong, it drops it down, it drops it down, it drops it down.
Okay, so you can get in down to there.
You can, and then here's the cool thing, is that once it gets down to that level, it'll actually give teachers an idea of what students need to work on, and it'll give students lessons to do.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
And then improve, and then, right?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's targeted for that standard though.
Yeah. That's good.
Now, it's all, there's no written answers, it's gonna be close or multiple choice, okay?
Yeah, there's oral reading fluency that's different.
Yeah.
Like at the elementary level, there has to be some one-on-one elements of that.
Right. But I'm just saying, does the SBA still have any written answers? Still sure, so we still don't have something that's giving us more information?
So glad you said that, because there's a thing called the focus interim assessment block, right?
Right, I've read about that.
Exactly what you're
I was
saying.
very interested, yes,
Yeah.
that was.
So it's not just about iReady, we talk about that triangulation of data.
Right.
These focus interim assessment blocks are created by the state with prompts that they use on the SBA.
Right.
And they give rubrics for teachers to actually interact and look at it.
And will the teachers have some training? Because it's always different when you suddenly have to look at those written answers and figure out the rubrics, and it helps a lot to have the training and the group working, helping each other.
Yeah, I would say probably our most important work along the way is making sure that standards are well known, right? And not only that, we know what they're asking kids to do, but what they actually look like
Yes,
along the way.
exactly.
And so this will help us do that
Yeah.
in our professional learning view. So it's, yeah, all these things are sort of coming together.
Yeah.
It's exciting to see what this is gonna do. It's gonna align much better to than
Yeah, take the surprise away from performance, right?
yeah.
But now, I'm not gonna guarantee we'll get 100% students there. I would love that, that'd be so great. But we'll know if a student doesn't make it before they take the test, and we'll know why, right?
Yeah.
That I can absolutely promise you right now. I would love to say next year we'll have 100% proficiency, but I just don't think that's realistic here.
And it'll take the shock away from the kids, like, oh, what are they asking me to do here? You know, if you've done something similar. It's not teaching to the test, it's like learning how the difference between writing a business letter and a friendly letter. I mean, you know, you do things according to the format.
Here's the exciting thing about mastery goals, is it takes a lot of the teacher-centered generated things, and it actually now puts students in the driver's seat, right? So like when they get a task, they're gonna think, is this aligned to that standard that I'm really working on or not? And if the answer is not, then they don't really keep it. But if it is, like, oh, I'm proud of this now, look what I did, right? And so then they can chart their own progress along the way. So it's less about us telling them what they have to do, and more about them experiencing it. And I think it's kind of cool. So this is attendance, which I think we touched on a bit earlier before. This is not disaggregated. What you'll see in CSEP plans is that principals will have a plan for this, right? So you'll see, I can come up with a plan, but would it apply to all 4 schools? I don't know. I don't know if that would. I think there's some things we can do around community and family partnership and engagement that would probably help these things. I'm working on a native ed program, for example, and bringing parents around that is definitely going to improve these scores. But if we have a focus at the school level, I think it'll be much more effective than if we as a district had said, here's what we're going to do. I mean, there's all kinds of things we can think about and doing to change these numbers, but it is contextual to that building.
I'm not surprised at the high school presenting, I mean, it is, I'm surprised a little bit, but not as much as I am at the elementary level. That surprises me, because the parents are the ones that get the kids. You know what I'm saying? I would expect that to go a lot higher.
Well, we're experiencing really high rates of anxiety, for example. There's a lot of, so that, if you think about one of the biggest impacts on this is probably that, right? And so how do we decrease that anxiety? I would say through belonging, right? Is really thinking about the elevation of dignity in particular, and doing the things like what Ed was showing, the awards that we give kids. Those awards aren't given always the top performers in the school, we're given to every kid. And so there's ways, that's why I say it's gotta be school-based, where you think about as a leader and come up with all different kinds of ways, so it's contextual to that building.
I was sharing with Ed about someone an adult who has mental health days, with their kids. So they pull their kids out of school for these mental health days, and they go do something fun, which that time with your child is really important. But the backside of that is their child's missing school, and I think that may be happening to a lot more kids.
Well, we have 180 days to get kids, and you think about that 180 days, each day is about 5.5 hours. And you think about take the transitions and lunch out of there, it becomes even less. And so it's such a small amount of time, so we have to make that time important. Just wanted to end with this one, really thinking about this theory of action, coming back to that. Ed showed that earlier. But really, we're not losing the focus on agency and dignity. It's super important. It really is something that we can work on throughout our system that's going to help us. That's going to help us better engage kids, better engage teachers around the work, and elevate really the work of both students and adults in the district. So this is not going away. So I think I got your comments and questions, but I'll stop here. Be more happy to do that.
I want to thank you for asking, or for answering our questions, and as much as we try to send them ahead of time, I think this is something that is near and dear to everyone, and you get us thinking, and I just appreciate you with your candid responses.
This is for me, this data point is really probably the most important one, and at least inform one at the same time. It's hard for me to see, as being a principal, I've never been involved with scores that have been this low ever. And so it's something that breaks my heart, it really does. But I also know it's not the full measurement of the hard work that staff is doing, or the good work that kids are doing every day. If you walk through schools, you just be incredibly proud of the things that are happening. And there's nothing I would say that I'm ashamed of, or I'd say that we aren't feeling it. I just don't feel that way. I think we can just do differently, and those scores will go up. It's not the only measurement of our kids.
Right.
How did you come up with already? I mean, was it recommended to you?
I'm just brilliant that way, so.
So,
No, it's,
you got it.
the Park Collaborative, Paul Bloomberg really recommended us taking a look at iReady and also STAR as well. And so those are the two top leading diagnostic tools. And so we looked at both of those and really kind of vetted out both. The reason we picked iReady is because it's much more interactive and it's less sciencey, and you can use it.
Okay.
Is it the same STAR that's been around?
Same star. but
The same STAR
way
meeting?
upgraded.
Oh, I was gonna say, because
I was gonna say
that
that's
was
been
really
forever.
diagnostic at the beginning.
Yes.
That was a long, long
Yeah,
time
there's,
ago.
STAR is, I think about 15% of the schools in Washington State use STAR. The rest use iReady, and there's a reason for that. But STAR's still not bad.
Well, then it must have improved a lot, because initially it was not diagnosed.
No, iReady's got it going on, so they're rolling the dough, but they have a good tool.
So next time we're together is board work session November 7th. We wanted to front load the last two meetings just so you had some context of what you're going to see in here. So we'll probably relatively quickly move into the presentation mode. So right into leaders that day. So this is your background of what we've been up to, how we're thinking about strategic planning. You should see many of these ideas reflected in leaders, not only the goals they're setting. I provided some strong feedback that we would like to close that gap within the next 2 years to at least state average across the board uniformly. So you'll see some ambition in their goals and clarity in the action plans to help move towards that direction. So hopefully that provides some good background and context for what you're going to see here next time we're together.
Will we circle back around to this in May? The number,
Well, some of we'll go back to the measures.
whatever's available.
Yes.
Okay. Right, the measures.
I really appreciate that you actually went out and found something that you feel will really work and help. I mean, rather than just saying, we have to improve these scores. I mean, I've heard that before, well, how do you do that? And you guys have gone out of your way to actually find a way to improve the scores. And I think that's so valuable because they're going to actually be working directly on how to do it rather than just trying to figure out how to improve the scores.
So if you think throughout our continuum of everything tested, it either had or has this year a brand new curriculum in place. It has a system in place. Every teacher team has been able to collaborate with an expert in English language arts or mathematics to help set these priority focus goals. And for the first time ever, we have diagnostic information that we'll be able to give multiple times throughout the year. So I feel very strongly we're on the right pathway. And I know by the end of this year, we'll know much more information than we did how we started this year, and we'll be even better. Wherever we're at, we'll be even better next year because we can start with this pathway right away and with better data.
Right. I know we don't always get a lot of parents at things, but after we get going with this and the iReady, it would be really nice to have like a curriculum night just to show them what's happened, show them what we're doing, show them the new curriculum, the iReady. I think it would be valuable to have parents see that.
Especially since I'm real curious as to what kind of assessments are in the new math curriculum. I don't know anything about what kind of assessments they have and what kind of information we will get from that.
Yeah, I can speak to the elementary Alex assessment as well, because it's very similar to iReady. It gives that diagnostic information by standard as well, so there's elements of that, but it's a curriculum based. So it's not as focused as iReady is.
And don't they even give lessons according to how the student did? And look, I like that.
Technology.
It's nice sometimes.
Yeah.
I know it works.
But it's not on your list?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. item on the list is our consent agenda, which we have that modification as well that's been approved. So I am looking for a motion on items 1 through 7.
I move to approve items 1 through 7 on the consent agenda.
I second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, last item, board comments. Board? I haven't seen
Excited to see it.
Yeah.
I'm excited about what's
I think
happening.
we're making the comments with,
Yeah, yeah.
We've been making
Yeah.
comments as we've gone along.
excited to see what's gonna come of this. So, yep.
I had a few general comments. One, I want to remind the community that October 28th is the last day to register to vote, and you can do that online. Voter pamphlets are on my kitchen table, so they've arrived, and if you didn't receive one, piercecountylaw.gov, go to the elections section, there's a PDF there if you are interested in that. And then October 29th is our virtual town hall at 6 p.m. We've had several in-person opportunities, our website, a lot happening through social media to help the community learn about the bond. But we understand sometimes it's hard to attend in person, so we're hosting a virtual town hall so that community members, staff members, and students can participate. And everyone's invited. And the link is on our website, under the bond section, under community outreach. So the link to join the meeting is there, and we hope everyone comes if you still have questions. Anything else?
Please register to vote if you're not.
Yes.
Are they, yeah, on the 26th, is there something going on? Are we doing anything?
The committee is doing something
Oh, the
that
committee,
Yes.
okay.
we can't discuss.
Yeah.
That's right. Great. Okay, anything else? Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I will adjourn tonight's meeting at 7:29.